podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for another Saturday morning news roundup. We're here to talk about the things that we haven't covered off on the pod this week. And it's kicking us off, we've got a bunch of things on pre-season, retained list, Jobe Bellingham latest, which seems to change by the minute, so this could be out of date by the time the pod goes out, Kristjaan Speakman and some other bits and pieces that have been doing the rounds this week. Anyways, joining me first up, we've got Johnny Hawley, and I'm not going to give you your shitty nickname today, mate, because I think you've been pretty quiet since the season ended. You've just been appearing on ours, so we can't give you any grief. All right, mate.
Aye, not too bad, mate. Aye, the invitations have dried up. Now we're getting back in the big leagues. I'm going to have to find a new audience. It's about time we met up for our sort of weekly chat about what the hell's going on with Jobe Bellingham. It feels like it's been a little while since we talked about it for a change.
Yeah, well, it is. It's been a week exactly, mate. Also with us, we've got Ant Watterson. Hello, mate.
Hello, you all right?
Yes, very good, Mara, very good. Are you still sort of basking in the glory of the playoff final win and Wembley and all that, or are you firmly looking forward?
A bit now. I'm getting slightly more nervous about next season now, but I'm still like in that bubble, so to speak. By the way, the last podcast made my dad cry that way he did, so there we go. Well, he's a man of very little emotion, but he cried at that one.
It made a lot of people cry, that one. I think we had a lot of feedback from people who said it resonated and stuff. If anyone's wondering which one we're on about, it's the post-Wembley round table that me and Irish Mike and Bomber did, where we just
Sexy
basically
Mike.
talked about Sexy Mike. I could call him Irish Mike. Sexy Mike's his better name, isn't it? Yeah, we did a pod just talking about our weekends in Wembley and how we all got there and how things went down and all that. And yeah, we all got a bit emotional and got a bit teary. I got a bit teary. I think it might have been the drink that made me teary, like.
To be fair, Gab, I get teary when there's no toilet roll left in the bathroom, so I cry all the time. But you know, for you, it's the first time I've seen you emotional, like. So
I'm blaming the drink, the heavy weekend that I had, definitely. Anyways, enough about Wembley. We're talking about things going forward, and as I mentioned in the intro, Johnny, pre-season, we finally announced some fixtures. I did get a message a month or so ago about us being in Portugal, but nothing had been confirmed. And I kind of wish that I'd just booked the holiday because I probably would have got it a lot cheaper than what people are being charged now. I mean, even, our own Craig Chapman, he's booked up to go with his kids and his wife to Portugal, and the bastards he's bought the holiday off have bumped the price up after he's paid for it, which is dodgy as out. But Sunderland fans are about to get fleeced for a weekend in the Algarve. Anyways, though, should be fun for the people who are going. On top of that, though, we've it's bookended with some other fixtures which have been announced. We've got the token double header, Gateshead and South Shields, although they've flipped the kick-off times this time, which is interesting. We're now kicking off the pre-season schedule with the first game against Gateshead at the Gateshead International Stadium, a 12:30 kick-off on the 12th of, on the 12th of July. Immediately afterwards, I think people have got like an hour and a half or so to get themselves to South Shields for the other game, which is played the same day at the First Cloud Arena, 4 o'clock kick-off. We usually split the squad, so what normally happens is you'll have 2 first-team 11s and then a bench full of kids who play in both games. And then 7 days later, we play a game in the Algarve, which hasn't been confirmed yet who we're playing. And then 2 days later, another game in the Estadio Algarve. Rumours circulating that it could be Celtic because they're also over there playing somebody who I can't remember now. But there are a couple of teams in the Algarve at the same time as us, so we'll wait for that one to be confirmed. And then on the 26th of July, we're playing Heart of Midlothian at Tynecastle Park, 3 o'clock kick-off, and that is Craig Gordon's testimonial match, which is nice to have had us invited along to that one. And then 3 days later, we play on a Tuesday night, I think it is, against Hull City at the MKM Stadium, which isn't too far for us to travel. And that is then followed at the weekend by a game at the Stadium Light against Real Betis. And the club have said that there will also be another fixture, which they haven't yet announced, on the weekend of the 9th and 10th of August. And I did hear some rumours, people saying it could be Inter Miami, but I think that's been quashed because they're actually already playing on that weekend. So unless they send a totally different team across the playoffs, which doesn't include Lionel Messi, I don't think it'll be them. But yeah, we've got 3 games there which have yet to be announced. But still, a pre-season schedule, Johnny, that's out there now. People can make their plans. What do you think of the fixture lineup so far?
It's interesting, I think, when you look at the spread of teams. I mean, obviously, we don't know who we're going to be playing in Portugal, but like you say, I think it was Celtic, and I want to say Sporting was the other team that possibly, I think I saw mentioned.
It would make sense if it was another Portuguese team, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, we, like you say, we don't know exactly who it's going to be, but if we assume that those names are in the ballpark of who it's going to be, obviously Real Betis as well, beating finalists in the Conference League against Chelsea. There's some decent sized teams in there, and hopefully, I mean, they're probably not going to be as intense as the actual league games are going to be when they roll around sort of mid to late August. But I'm hoping it's going to be a set of good tests for the lads. Obviously we've got, like you say, the customary Shields and Gateshead Day, a game against Hull, who, with the greatest of respect, probably not going to be a massive challenge. And also maybe not the most exotic destination for any of the lads fans who were
wrong with Hull, like.
well, I've been to Hull's ground before, and it's all right. It's maybe not as good as the Algarve is.
No, so just a little bit. I think fine margins between the Algarve and Hull.
Hey, look, beauty's in the eye of the beholder and everything, but I think maybe
Hull won City of Culture, didn't they, one year? I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
Yes,
they did. Right.
Yeah, I'm just an uncultured swine, me. That's all it is. But it's a good mix. I think it's a good mix of some decent sides, some lower down teams who, bit of a change of intensity, some good places for the fans to go, and I'm just excited now to see kind of the rest of it get finalised. So whoever we're going to play on that last weekend, whoever the other team is going to be, if there's to be, I think there's probably going to be 4 teams in the Algarve, I'd have thought, some sort of mini tournament maybe. But no, it's exciting, and it's nice to be gearing up for a pre-season, looking into the Premier League rather than thinking about how we're going to try and scrape promotion. So yeah, just all positives for me.
Yeah, any of these stand out for you, Ant? Are you going to be making any trips?
I don't think I'll be going to Portugal, and I'm definitely not going to Hull. Again, there's nothing wrong with Hull, but it's just not something I'd like to do pre-season, to be totally honest with you. But I might go to the Hearts game. I quite like how, Hearts have chosen us for Craig Gordon's testimonial, because I think Craig Gordon, I know his time here was a little bit mixed because we weren't great, were we? But I thought he made some cracking saves for us. I thought he was a really good goalkeeper. Obviously, the Bolton game where he makes that save of the century, which still to this day, I don't know how he saved it. So I'm really glad that, we've been chosen by Hearts to do that. And it's a nice stadium. I've been to Tynecastle a few times, and it's a nice stadium. It's a nice little day out in Edinburgh. So, that's good for me. And obviously the home game against Betis, I'm glad that we've chosen a home game, because we haven't had one for a little while. It was last one Real Mallorca, I think.
I think you're right, yeah. Because we had the Springsteen concert last year, didn't we?
That's right, yeah, we did. Yeah. We did. So, and to be fair, the Real Mallorca game was nice.
Actually, sorry just to butt in there, but I've just remembered there, we played Marseille and bloody Bradford, didn't we?
We did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because we had a week in Bradford, didn't we? Because we had Bradford away as well, didn't we? Yeah. So it's nice to see that, they've got, Hull, Bradford, the good destinations of England, for the proper hardcore fan can go to there. Again, nothing wrong with Bradford, but
there is, by the way, it's an absolute shithole.
But no, I mean, I like to have a home game. I think it's a chance as well for everyone to have a little, you go in and have a little bit of a mini celebration, isn't it? It's looking forward to the season and stuff like that. So it'd be nice to get everyone back together for that and get to see hopefully some new players in action. So looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, I love that double header we start off with. I've been the last 2 times. I don't think I'm going to be able to go this time, which is a bugger. But I love that double header we do, because I love the Shields portion of it, because the game against Shields is great. It's always rammed. They've got bars right round the pitch. You can stand and drink while you're watching the game. So you can go up on the hard stand on the top and stuff and watch the match from up there, and you can get on the drink. And it's I'm pretty sure the last couple of times we've been, I think it rained a bit last time, but it was still really warm. So it's warm enough. You can stand out with a pint and watch the football. And because the fans are so close to the pitch and because it's so busy, it actually feels like a proper game. And I've enjoyed it. Anybody who's thinking about going along, I would highly recommend it, because it's a good day out, and it's good for the fans to be able to take a couple of games in locally. You don't have to, you can get on the metro to both destinations. The Gateshead leg of it, I went the first year when Jobe made his debut, and it pissed down and there's no roof on the away end, if you want a drink, they've got the bar is like an outdoor, I say it's not even a bar, it was a trestle table in a field with cans on, warm cans. You would get, I was just like, oh shit, this like. So we got to half time and we dicked off because it was chucking down and I think we were getting beat as well. So we were just like, bollocks to this, we're leaving. But they flipped the fixtures round this time, which is probably better, I think, because I'm pretty sure last year the Gateshead game wasn't as well attended. So I'm
wasn't.
presuming that, yeah,
you're right. And they beat us as well last year. Gateshead.
Can't even remember. Yeah. Can't even remember. They're an absolute mess at the minute, aren't they? So that one should be fun.
But the bother is going to Gateshead. You're always worried in case a hearse comes driving on the pitch, isn't you? So it's the last thing you want to watching a football game. So, like, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the only bother with both of them, they're always on the same day as Durham Miners Gala. Obviously, maybe it's Durham lad, I went to Miners Gala. So, like what I did a couple of years ago, I went to like the start of the Miners Gala and watched the Shields game. But you're right, it's a dreadful stadium. So, God knows what's going to happen this year. Like,
maybe Hull's are not sounding so bad now, lads, compared to Gateshead. Like,
I get, but like I say, the Shields is a great little ground, cracking day out. Definitely do that one. Gateshead, if you're trying to pick between which of the games to go to, if you can't do both, I would drop the Gateshead one. But yeah, then we go into Portugal after that. Like I say, we don't know who we're playing, but it's nice for the away, particularly the fans who travel away. Like there are fans who plan their whole lives around Sunderland, including their summer holidays, including Craig, who I've just mentioned before. You know, Craig, who's obviously part of our team. So good on them that they get a nice short trip. It doesn't take too long to get to Portugal. It's going to be warm in it. It's going to be Sunderland fans everywhere. It's going to be a good weekend on the drink. So that's nice that people have got that sandwiched in there. And then the Craig Gordon testimonial, which we mentioned before, at least, you know, it means it's not just a friendly. There's something a little bit special about it. He's got connections to both clubs. Hopefully that one's well attended. With it being Edinburgh, I would imagine it would be. I was looking at trains yesterday and pretty sure you can get like a return for 30 quid up to Edinburgh, unless they've bumped the prices up when they've realised there's a game on. But yeah, that one's one to look forward to. Hull maybe less so, although it's not too far away. It takes like 2.5 hours to get to Hull from the northeast. So, you know, you haven't got far to travel for a Tuesday night. That one's not too bad. The Betis game, I'm hoping it'll be well attended, because the only thing I've found with the recent home friendlies, and they treat the cup games the same. We only open like certain stands, and it doesn't really encourage people along. I think if people could sit in their own seats and watch the game from where the seat they're going to have in the Premier League, it might encourage people to come. It looks crap, doesn't it, when you've only got like 2 stands open for a friendly? It just looks shite. So I'm hoping we do something a bit more special with that one, and then whatever's to come afterwards, we'll see. But it's a decent lineup. I think you're going to want a real big challenge, though, Johnny, aren't you, for that last game that they haven't yet announced? I think going into the Premier League season, you want to be playing somebody who's going to give you that level of test going into the first game.
Yeah, and I think it's noticeable as well that the general difficulty of game / size of team seems to slowly ramp up a bit towards the end of the end of the schedule as well. Obviously, Betis being that penultimate game, and then whoever we get on that last weekend. I agree. I think it should be hopefully a big size team and a good team who can actually give us a bit of a challenge. And you'd think as well, with it being so close to the start of the sort of the European seasons and the Premier League season as well, obviously that all of the players will be getting near enough towards peak fitness, and it should be able to be quite an intense game, rather than you think the start of pre-season, the intensity is not going to be there, the match fitness and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think you want that end of season game to be, obviously you want us to win, so you don't want to have like Real Madrid rocking up and Jobe Bellingham knocking 4 past us or whatever. But yeah,
I don't know. I reckon it's been a long time since we had that level of. I mean, I remember the event. We had 2 friendlies with Juventus, haven't we? Down the years, 2 or 1, I can't remember now. We definitely played them. I remember we played them when they had like Nedved and Trezeguet and stuff like that at the stadium. And Spider-Man came flying out of the tunnel with a ball. I don't know. Were you there at that one? That was good.
I can vaguely remember it. Yeah, you brought back a memory there. Yeah,
the ball, like, I don't know, it was like a wayward shot, and it went flying behind the south stand down into the concourse. So the ball, and back in them days, it wasn't like there was a ball boy stood there at every station with a ball. And all of a sudden, a bloke dressed as Spider-Man just emerged out of the tunnel with them. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Then I think he got chased by the Pink Panther. It was bizarre. I'm hoping there's a video of it out there somewhere. Maybe someone can send us it after listening to this. But yeah, it was a big cracker. I think we drew ones each. Daryl Murphy scored, if I remember rightly.
I don't think the game matters now after that. Like,
No.
entrance, like, does it? Might as well just gone home after that.
Yeah. I remember Buffon playing. I'm pretty sure it was around the time that they'd been done for some financial issues and they'd been demoted.
Relegated.
And I think they'd just been promoted back to Serie A when they played us. So they still clung on to a couple. I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure that was the crack anyways.
They did keep a couple of the big players then when they got relegated, like, so that would make sense.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the crack, like, so... anyways, that was that. So hopefully we get that level of opponent. I would love like someone like a real... You've got to think we're a Premier League club now. So, you know, there's going to be top like Premier League level sides across Europe who will want to play us. I mean, we played Dortmund, didn't we? There's another one. We played Dortmund when David Moyes was manager. I think we drew 1-1 with them and all.
Aye, we did.
If I remember rightly.
Yeah, that's who I would have, to be honest. I would have Dortmund.
Yeah.
I would have Dortmund, and it included as part of the Jobe Bellingham deal that we're going to pay every season.
I think the other thing you've got to factor in actually is that the Club World Cup is on over the summer. So a lot of the clubs involved in that aren't going to be probably playing. I don't know. It's probably just throwing everything up in the mix. But let's hope we get somebody decent anyways. A club that's going to help shift some tickets, and we can get, because what you want leading into the Premier League is a nice atmosphere, big club coming, big friendly, maybe show off some of the new players and the new kits and stuff in front of home fans. That's what you want, innit? Anyways, we will move on to the retained list, which was relatively uneventful, but we haven't talked about it, so I think we should. There was the confirmation of Enzo Lefebvre's deal with the club, 4-year contract. Fee hasn't been disclosed, but it's believed to be around £19.3 million, which would make that a club record fee if you ignore the fact we paid about $500 million for Ricky Alvarez over many different court cases and issues. It did confirm that Chris Mepham and Salis Abdul Samad have gone back to the parent clubs. That doesn't mean they're not going to sign for us, but it does mean they've gone back for the time being. That's the purpose of a retained list. You can't retain players that you haven't yet signed. But the understanding is that we're trying to sign Chris Mepham, I think. Salis, I don't believe the club are likely to pursue. He barely played for us. So unfortunately, Enzo Lefebvre's hype man will not be returning to Wearside, we don't think. Tommy Watson's move to Brighton was confirmed in the period between the end of the season and the retained list coming out, and that was on there. In terms of releases, there were no first-team releases because no first-team players were out of contract. And I think that, again, highlights just how well-run the club is. We're not letting people run their contracts down. We're not signing players we don't want. We're not retaining players that we want rid of but can't get rid of. We're sort of recognising within a year to 18-month period, we have to sell this player. I think we had the likes of Danny Bath, we had Alex Pritchard in the last couple of years who were getting towards the end of the deal, and rather than hang on to them, we got a little bit of money, and that meant that we didn't have players running out of contract. But in terms of out of contract players, there were some from the under-21 squad. Ben Crompton, who was in quite a lot of first-team squads last season. I think even, did he start in the League Cup game at the start of last season? I think he did. He was on the bench quite a bit. Then he had a bad injury, which kept him out for a little while, and then I think he came back towards the end of the season. And I've always thought, look, a canny player, Ben Crompton. I think he went on to play for Tamworth, didn't he, on loan in the second half of the season, and did quite well there. Played in the FA Cup against Spurs. It was his job to Mark Hungman's son, wasn't it? And he actually did really well in that game. I remember watching it. So Ben Crompton, I think, will be absolutely fine. Others on that list, you had Cuba Mitchell, someone I don't know a lot about. Caden Kelly, who briefly flirted with appearing on the bench and doing pretty well in the 21s. I think he went out on loan to Dalton and did well there, but Dalton play in the National League North, so it's a big step to expect somebody to be able to play in the Premier League, certainly. And then Kelechi Chibueze, another one who's been on the bench a fair few times, third choice goalkeeper. Always looked pretty decent for me when he's played for the 21s, but he's been released, as well as Aaron Chung and Daniel Parker, who were second-year scholars. They've also left. Ben Middlemass, Ollie Bainbridge, Marshall Burke, and Dan Cameron, who were all cracking players. I'm a really big fan of Dan Cameron in particular. Middlemass has looked good for the 21s when I've watched them. They've all agreed one-year extensions. And Ethan Moore and Timur Tutierov have been offered new terms following the end of their contracts, so possibly they could be staying. Ben Kindon, Ben Metcalf, Jack Whittaker and Jaden Jones, who won, I believe, Academy Player of the Year this year. Jaden Jones, brother of Harrison, because I think both of them won their respective age group awards. they've all been offered their first professional contract. So, not a lot in terms of first team news there, Ant. But as I said before, it's got to be good, pleasing to Sunderland fans that we aren't releasing bloody 6, 7, 8 players at the end of the season. We're not losing money on players. It seems to be a strategy of the club, doesn't it, to avoid that?
Oh, 100%, yeah. It was good to have that worry, not to have that worry, wasn't it? Like, I think we're talking in January about it, weren't we? And, it's always that, especially when we don't know which league we're going to be in, Premier League, Championship or something, us losing a potential first teamer. So, yeah, I mean, them ones that you've mentioned, I've watched a few of them in the under-23s. They'll be all right. They're good footballers. But as you said before, they're not going to make that step up. And what we've got to think about now is we need that academy product, your next 17, 18-year-old, your next Chris Rigg, to be honest, to be Premier League ready in 3, 4, 5 years. So it's time for them to, wish them all the best. They've all, like I say, all did very well through the 23s, especially I thought Caden Kelly actually had a little bit in him when last year, when they went all the way to the final of the under-23 Cup, he was scoring goals. He scored an absolute cracker against West Ham at Everton. So hopefully he finds a club. I'm sure they all will. I'm sure they'll be fine.
With him, and sorry to step over there, mate. With him,
sorry.
It's 21-year-old.
Yeah,
we've got 17-year-olds starting first team games. It's like, I think what it does is it brings the standard up from the academy. It's like, particularly Chris Rigg, Tommy Watson have shown what the standard is for their age. So you've got to be that good at that age to be in the first team.
Definitely.
And I think that's the problem, isn't it? If you're 21 and you haven't made it, 21, he's 22 in November, so he's 2 and a bit years younger than Dan Neil, who's played 200 odd games, coming up to 200 games. He's the captain of the team. That's the gap you've got to bridge, isn't it? Yeah,
you're right. It's the same with that. It's a Chick Brady, the goalkeeper. I mean, he'll be 22, 23 now. So if he's not playing or getting on the bench, then it's best off for him to go somewhere. One of my friends at work, he supports Concert, and he was there last year for a brief period. Yeah, my mate was like, I didn't see much in him, so I wasn't surprised he's gone. Plus, we've got obviously Matty Young coming back, and that Dan Cameron, who from what everyone's saying, is a cracking goalkeeper. Yeah, so I think we're fine. And as you said, there's not a standout name in there, is there, like what there has been in seasons past. So I'm happy, to be honest.
Yeah, and the other goalkeeper who didn't get a mention there was Adam Richardson, who's still at the club as well, I think. So we've got a few really good ones coming through the academy, and again, it just increases the competition. Johnny, just your thoughts on the retained list. Like I said, there's no real shocks and surprises on there. I mean, obviously the club have got to announce that Chris Mepham and Abdul Samad have left. They even followed it up with a Twitter post in their social media post just thanking them for their time at the club and stuff. But no real shocks. Like I said, under 21s releases kind of make sense, but the standard has been raised, hasn't it? At academy level, you've got to be Watson and Rigg level to make it. And I think the good thing is that we've actually got players coming through who are going to be that level. You look particularly towards the end of the season, the 21s basically was the under 18s, and you had Finn Garagusian up front, who's 16, 17, and he's banging them in and getting loads of assists. He's going to be the next one, you know what I mean? And then you've got Triaga Sunyi, who's obviously had a brilliant season at under 21 level. I think if you can be sound in the mind we're releasing lads who are good players who have done very well for the under 21s and will probably have good careers in the game, at a lower level. But unfortunately, the standard is that high in our academy right now that you've got to reach a certain level, otherwise you're just not going to make it.
Well, that's it. It's the standards improving, isn't it? And I think it's basically like a little preview of what the squad building philosophy is going to have to be for the first team going forward now. In obviously, like you said, we've not let anyone's contract actually expire in the first team this summer, which is a good thing because obviously academy level's a bit different. You don't tend to have every single player going for a transfer fee every time they move a club. But obviously the first team, you want to be getting money for players whenever they go, but they're going to have the same kind of conversations really internally, aren't they? Around, I don't want to dig people out, but certain players, maybe you think of people like, say, Adjie, say, Niall Huggins, where you're looking at them thinking, right, the decent squad options in the Championship, they're injured a lot, they don't get long runs of regular football to have that time to develop and improve. are they going to be able to keep up with us on this, on this journey that we're on? And obviously, we could get relegated at the end of the season. We could be right back at the same division, but they're going to have to start thinking in a bit more of a brutal and ruthless sort of way, right the way from the top to the bottom. So I think, the stuff that you see in there with the academy lads, like you say, it's a shame for them that they are getting released, but they're obviously decent players and they will go on to find other clubs, I'm sure. And it'll be the same for the first team. There'll be lads who move on, who a lot of us would think, I thought he was all right, actually. He's a decent footballer, but we have to start setting the bar a little bit higher than just being a decent footballer. The same way that in the academy, it's no longer good enough to be 19, 20 and knocking on the door. By the time you're 19, 20 in this team, you've got to be on 50 or 100 games, otherwise you're just not going to keep up. That's it. But it'll be interesting to see. This summer's retained this nice and calm for the first team, but obviously next summer, that's where we do, we've got Dan Neil who's running out of contract, we've got Dennis Serkin who's running out of contract in the next season. I'm not sure if there's others just off the top of my head, but I think that next summer is where things will be a lot more interesting, regardless of which division we end up staying in.
Well, I think the club like to be slightly ahead, don't they? And so we're talking about contracts coming up next year. I would like to think either way we'll know in terms of Dan Neil and Serkin, the two big ones that Johnny just mentioned. I would like to think we're going to know by the end of the summer what the future is for those two players. And obviously everybody wants them to stay at Sunderland. I think retaining them was massive in terms of promotion was massive in terms of trying to retain those type of players. I think if you don't go up, all of a sudden you probably are going to lose them. But given we've been promoted and given the relationship these players have with the club, I can't foresee any issue with contract talks when it comes to Dan Neil and Serkin. So you would like to think the club are going to use this summer on to get ahead of that, you would think.
Yeah, I mean, a few reports have gone out saying that that's what they're going to be, looking to pin down, isn't it? Like some first teamers to new contracts and stuff. I'll be amazed if Dan Neil's not a Sunderland player, like not like next season, the season after. You know what I mean? Like the fact we've been promoted, he's the captain decided of a promotion. He's going down as a legend. You know what I mean? Already, and the fact he's thinking about leaving, I just can't see it with him at all. So I think we'll be one of the first ones that we tie down to. Dennis Serkin as well. Come here when we were in League One, seeing us back to the Premier League. Yes, he's injured a lot, but he's on his day. He's a phenomenal left back. And as you mentioned before, he seems to have a really good rapport with the fans. Obviously, he was at the soup kitchen with us, wasn't he? And took a lot in, and was really engaging with everyone. So I can see him signing one. Out the two of them, if there's a choice, I'd keep Neil. Because I think Dan Neil could be a massive part of this club for years to come. But I'd love them both. I think they'll both sign. I think it's just a matter of time, Gav, to be fair. I think it's the same with a few of them, though. I think, the main bundles this world, I think they'll be tied down to more money now that we're a Premier League side. Chris Rigg might get a bump of contract just to, keep him here. It's very exciting times, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the club are sensible enough, not to let good contracts run down, and two, not to mess players around. I think that's become very obvious that that's not going to happen.
Sorry to jump in as well there, but I forgot to mention this actually. I seen something I think it was in the Sunderland Echo the other day. It was reported that apparently a few players have already had the contracts bumped up, like automatically as part of some clauses that just kick in on promotion. I think the name Patterson was one of them specifically, and then alluded to a few others. But by the sounds of it, that's obviously the negotiations are happening, but some of them have happened already just by what they've had, put in. So I agree with what you were saying as well, and I think Neil and Serkin, I don't see too many massive issues in them staying, but it's good to know, isn't it, that the club are already obviously proactively sorting stuff like that and looking at it, because it's massively important to get such good young players tied down, isn't it? Yeah,
and I don't know if anyone hasn't heard it yet, but the pod we did with Ian Murtagh on Friday, which went out on Friday morning, he, at the end of the pod, talked about what he felt was Sunderland's advantage going up, and he said two good fullbacks, Serkin and Hume, will make a huge difference to Sunderland's survival chances. So, yeah, we've got to retain these players if we're going to stand half a chance of staying up, and be interesting to see how that kind of plays out over the coming weeks. And we've got to get to the Jobe Bellingham segment of this podcast now, because, of course, we're talking about players potentially leaving. As of Friday, this is the crack. So, Bild reported on Thursday evening that Dortmund may pull out because of the fee, which was obviously a leak story from Dortmund to their favourite newspaper. Build a quoting that Sunderland want the release clause to be met for Jobe, which is 40 million euros, and to me, that's absolutely fair. If we've agreed with Jobe Bellingham and his family when he signed his extension last year, that would be the amount that it would take to get him out of Sunderland, we'd be more than happy to let him go when the time was right. Then we have to stand firm. That's absolutely fine by me. The pressure's on Dortmund at the minute because they're playing in the Club World Cup. They're going to want Jobe as a showpiece signing available for that tournament, you would imagine, and it's only around the corner. He's also, though, been named in England's under-21 squad for the European Championships, which begs a question. If he signs for Dortmund in time for the Club World Cup, will he pull out of the England squad? I would imagine he would, because the Club World Cup is obviously a lot more important than playing for England. Certainly when you're spending £40 million on a player, you want to show him off a bit. So there's all of that in the air, but what it is doing is creating pressure around the situation. While it might only be the start of June, Dortmund want him in. They want him in the door. And all this is, and I'll let you come in on this, Johnny, but to me, all this is them just trying to put pressure on Sunderland. And I think it's a wasted exercise. I can't see the club folding just to get Jobe out the door. We aren't desperate for the money. We've been promoted. Might be in a different situation had we not been, but we're not desperate. We've already said we would like to keep him. If you want to sign him, pay us what he's worth. And we've done this with every big name sale that we've had since Speakman and Kirill came in the door. If you want to sign our best players, you've got to pay what we think they're worth. And for me, that is the best approach from Sunderland's perspective.
It's absolutely what they should be doing. It's the right approach for me, 1,000,000%. I think the only outgoing of a big player over the last few years where I think fans were quibbling and possibly some were justified in some criticism was Jack Clarke to Ipswich, where I was one of those who was kind of saying, look, we knew he was going to go, but I thought we could have maybe done a little bit better out of the deal financially. But even that one, it's a minor complaint really, because we still banked whatever it was, 15 million or so. I think with that one as well, it came down to sort of how much we got up front, and Ipswich were prepared to. I think we got a good £10 million of that up front. Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
a lot and this isn't something we as fans necessarily have much exposure to, so I wouldn't expect us to know this. We just see a figure, but it's not always laid out like that. A lot, Chelsea buy players over bloody 8 and 10 years, don't they? It's like this is so for the club to get a nice lumper for a player that sometimes weighs heavier than 20 million over 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it proved to be the right move in hindsight anyway, because we went on to get promoted. So he certainly can't complain too much. But you think back to the Ross Stewart deal, I think we had Southampton's pants down there.
Sold an injured player for 10 million quid. Yeah.
And I think he's only scored one league goal for them since, hasn't he? Which was the one he got the other week in the Prem.
Yeah, the one was it the last day of the season?
Yeah, I think it was.
Scored. Yeah.
So yeah, we've shown that we're savvy operators in the transfer market, both with incomings and with outgoings, which is massively important, and it's going to be huge this summer because this isn't going to be the only tough negotiation that we're in, whether it's with a player's agent at the club or a prospective signing, whether it's a club themselves, such as we are now with Dortmund, where clearly as well with the added interest of being in the Premier League and having such, wanted players, like you say, it all starts playing out in the media. You've got stuff leaking to build, you've got stuff that Fabrizio Romano's putting out. You've got all the, again, as you said, the pressure of the Club World Cup and stuff like that. It's a totally different ecosystem that we're operating in now compared to where we were before. So I think it's important for the club to send the right message with the first big negotiation they've got. And I think so far so good for me. I think Speakman's handling it as well as you could want. And you bang on with what you said as well, Gav. We don't need to sell. He likes it here, by all accounts. So I don't think he's going to be one of these players who'd go on strike or whatever if a deal isn't struck in the next few days.
We aren't going to mess him around. And I think this, given the relationship that the Speakman camp and the Bellingham camp have with each other, I can't see Sunderland messing him about. I think they'll be made very well. Look, Dortmund are trying to take the piss out of us a bit here. You can go, but we need the money that we've said.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure there's loads of communication going on behind the doors at the Academy of Light and stuff. And I think it's a bit of a win-win situation if we hold this position, both for us and for the player, really. The only losers could be Dortmund, which I don't care about that. Because, obviously, if we hold firm, we either get the full whack of money and lose Jobe, but we've got plenty to replace him, or they don't meet the clause. We keep a brilliantly talented young player who we know fits nicely into the team. And for Jobe, he either plays a season in the Premier League with Sunderland, or he plays a season in the Bundesliga and European football with Dortmund, or goes to a secret third option if somebody else comes in. And if somebody's going to come in and pay that money, they're going to be a good team, a big club. You're not going to be going to some jobbers in the second division in Albania or whatever. You're going to be going to a top 5 league. So yeah, I think it's ideal for us to just hold this position. And look, I'm still expecting him to leave at some point. I think the question is whether it's going to be before the Club World Cup or whether it's going to be later. Because I think if he doesn't go now, I think at some point, not a bidding war, but a sort of a bit of a battle between a few clubs will end up happening further down the line, because he's just that good. But yeah, I think full credit to Speakman so far for the way that they've handled it, because it's nice to see us putting our foot down and being a bit of a bigger player on the stage, rather than in years gone by where we might have rolled over and had our tummies tickled.
Yeah. What's your preference on how this plays out? And do you just want it done sooner rather than later, or are you happy sitting back? Hope maybe if there's a bidding war, we get what we think he's worth. Like, what's your preference?
Definitely the latter. You know what I mean? I think that's what Dortmund are wanting us to just bend over and, like I say, get our bellies tickled and go for a cheaper option, which might include a bigger selling on fee or this, that, and the other. Look, we hold all the aces here. We're now a Premier League club. We've got a footballer that they want. Pay us what we want, what we feel we value them at. So I think it's quite easy enough to be Kristjaan Speakman at the minute, because he's going to go, well, I want this for him, which is what, 40 million euros, wasn't it? I want that. That's what we feel you should pay us. If you want him so badly, then pay us. It's very simple, and it's so refreshing actually to have that as it is like a Sunderland fan, having someone who's saying, no, you're not going to take advantage of this club. You're going to pay what we want you to pay, than having, say, 5, 6, 7 years ago when we were fire selling all of our young players for a packet of peanuts. It's just, I just love the fact that Speakman's doing that, and it speaks a lot of what Kristjaan Speakman feels about this club and what he does about this club. He values this club at a higher level than what it was previously. And in that case, values the players. And we're going to see that. We're going to see, teams, if we have a good season next year, we're going to see teams come after the likes of Chris Rigg, the likes of, you mentioned Faye Gargashian for the under-23. He's a fantastic footballer. He's going to be worth a fortune in a few years' time. It's good to see that we're not just going to say, we'll tack 20 million, give us 25 million if he pays 50 games fees. It's not that. You know what I mean? Give us 40 million. That's what we want. So fair play to him.
Yeah. And quickly on Speakman, he's been doing the rounds, hasn't he, Johnny? I heard him on BBC Newcastle. I've heard him on the TV. He did an interview with the club website. He's probably done an interview with national radio. I'm not sure. But Kristjaan Speakman doing it's kind of become customary now, hasn't it? At the end of a season, he comes out and does a bit of a debrief. But I just wonder whether this is all timed with the Bellingham stuff, like a show of strength. Him coming out, we're relaxed, we're doing this. We're going to do this season properly. I think I'm reading some of the quotes in the club piece. We have to stay true to what we are as a football club and what we have built over the past few years. He's also said the solution to get us to the Premier League won't be identical solution for us to stay in the Premier League, so we'll have to adjust in how we operate. We want to aim for high performance and to have a youthful squad, but we also understand the challenge of what the Premier League is. It's the best league in the world, and we're going to have to make sure we have a team that's capable of doing what our teams have done before, but at a higher level. So, I mean, lots of words without saying too much, but seems pretty relaxed, doesn't he, about the approach ahead? And I think he's probably as well, and I would be, and he doesn't seem very smug, but I would be smug if I was him. Amount of shit he's taken, not off us, mind, but off a lot of fans at varying points who just have never been having him. He must be sitting back and going, shut the fuck up. I know what I'm doing.
Gav, just quickly on that, right? Would you have been shocked if we did the interviews with the finger and his middle finger just go, yeah, we're wanting high performance next season.
feet up on the desk, cigar in hand.
Socks off and all.
For any cricket fans, I'm surprised he didn't look like Brendan McCullum on the balcony watching England play, just laid back, like feet up, sunglasses on. I'm surprised he didn't have like a cocktail in his hands and that. Because like you say, Gav, if I was him, I'd have just had the smuggest, like, shit-eating grin on my face. Probably had my finger up like, oh, what's that, lads? I don't know what I'm doing, yeah? I'm a penny pincher. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to take the club down. We're getting relegated. Aye. Tell us that again next season, boys, when we're in the Prem. But, no, obviously, like, joking aside, I thought that the one bit, because I watched the 5.5 minute one that the club put out yesterday, and the one bit that really interested me, you've read out as well, where he specifically went out of his way to say, the strategy that got us to the Premier League, whatever it was, it's not going to be identical to the strategy to try and keep us in the Premier League. And the reason that struck us was, I can't remember which interview this was, but for some reason I saw another older clip of Speakman the other day, and it was when he was talking about the model and signing older players, and somebody had asked him something like, you've signed older players, like, I think we just signed Alan Brown or someone. And they were like, is that a change from the model? And at that time, he went out of his way to say, no, I've never said we won't sign older players. What we've said is the model is primarily younger players and we want to develop them, but there's room for, other things as and when we need them. So I thought it's interesting that he's basically done a total 180 on that. And instead of kind of being like, well, the model's whatever we need it to be, he's like, no, very specifically, what we did to get here isn't going to be what keeps us here. So I think that does signal a change in strategy, but it's difficult to work out what it is because obviously Speakman quotes everything he says in about 6 layers of manager speak. So you need an MBA just to work out what the hell he's actually trying to get at half the time. But no, I think you're right as well. The timing does matter because again, I think the one from the club platform did specifically come out yesterday, didn't it? Yeah. Which obviously is right in the middle of all these stories and all the crack about Jobe. And I realise, as I keep saying yesterday for the listeners, that'll be Thursday because this is coming out on Saturday. But yeah, no, I think you're right. It is. And all of the social media content that keeps coming out about Jobe from the club as well, clips of him in the playoff games. And there was that clip of his initiation the other day that then like faded into the celebrations at Wembley. I think all of it's a bit of a coordinated effort, isn't it? To just kind of show, again, like, we're not having the piss took out of us. Like, we're carrying on. This is what we're doing. This is what we believe in. And if other people want to come and try and, take the piss out of us, then you can try, but we're too big to feel it, you know what I mean? It'll just bounce off. And so, yeah, I think Speakman did speak well as well. Again, he's great at manager speak and he never tends to let stuff slip, but I was impressed, and I think he deserves to do a few interviews and have a little bit of praise come to him because he takes a bit of stick, but what a job he's done.
That's it. Well, I think we'll leave off there and we'll let people get back to their weekends, and of course we can enjoy our weekends, lads. That's the most important thing. There were a couple of other bits. My end has been dropped out the under-21s for Spain. I think Lebris and Pedro Ribeiro have been doing interviews, but not much of note, so we'll leave off there. We've been going on long enough. A couple of plugs just for people who are listening. As I mentioned earlier, we spoke to Ian Murter, the decorated sports journalist who's covered Sunderland for over 40 years, working for the likes of the Chronicle, the Journal, the Star, etc. Pretty much every newspaper you can think of, he has worked for them and covered off the North East football scene. We had Ian on, and this was a topic he suggested, which was going over all of the promotions that he's covered in his time for Sunderland into the top flight. So 1990, 96, 99, 2005, 2007, and the one we've just had. And comparing how the club went into them, how we got there, how we coped the following season, just to see if anything we can draw on and how it compares to the current season and how we've just been promoted. And honestly, I loved that conversation. It was great. It was just great going down memory lane and talking about old days and seasons gone by. So make sure you catch up on that one. We've also had the end of season awards trilogy this week. So we had a pod out for player of the season, young player of the season, and goal of the season. Those were chunky ones, but we went over again some fun times going over how certain players had done, the best goals we scored this season and all the rest of it. So plenty to catch up on there. If you want to go even further back, there's been a load of reaction to the playoff win and Wembley and all that sort of stuff with various guests who we've had on, including ex-players and journalists and so on. But coming up over the weekend, we've got Michael Turner, an interview with Michael Turner, former Sunderland defender, on Sunday. That's actually one from the vaults, one we thought we'd lost, which was recorded a couple of years ago, but we've managed to recover, and it's a cracking interview going over his time at the club, signing for Steve Bruce back in 2009 for £6 million from Hull, I think. Michael Turner came in and playing alongside the likes of John Mensah and then coming up against us in League One. So that's a good interview coming up on Sunday. We've also got on this week, which is on Monday. That'll be Martin, Chris, Kelvin and Andrew going over what happened in the history of Sunderland that week. And I don't know about anybody else, but those have been a brilliant addition to our lineup. I love listening to those podcasts, so make sure you catch up on all of those. I mean, even if you want to go back to some of the older ones, they're still great listens. We've done, I think, 4 or 5 now, so make sure you catch up on this week. They're out every Monday. And then I think we've got Phil Smith joining us through the week to chat about the coming season. And we'll also be joined by Councillor Kevin Johnson, who it's a bit of a different one, talking about the regeneration of the city, how it all intertwines with the football club and how everything's just looking really positive for the city of Sunderland at the minute. So plenty to come on How Are the podcast this week. There's the end of my plugs. Anyways, thank you very much, Johnny. Appreciate your time, mate.
Thank you very much, Gav. Pleasure as always.
I was going to say, you can take yourself off mute. Thank you, and cheers, mate.
Cheers. Always a pleasure. Never a chore, my friend. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you to the listeners. Make sure you are subscribed. If you're not already subscribed, what are you playing at? Get subscribed. We are flying up the pod charts because we're out every single day. It's free. We don't charge a penny. We pride ourselves on that. Sunderland content for now at Jobe Report. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks to listeners. Thanks to the lads. We'll catch you on the next one.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.